Hi, I'm Anusia, and welcome to Soul Toll. This is your place to pause so you can explore your life in a whole new way. Today's conversation is about being a flat Stanley or a full 3D person. And please let me explain. So, do you remember the children's book series, Flat Stanley, about a boy who becomes flat after a bulletin board falls on him? And then he adventures as a flat person through life. And the memory that always comes up for me is him sliding under doors as a flat person. I thought that was so cool. But I brought this with me into adulthood as a visual for whenever I just feel flat and two-dimensional. Going through the motions, I've lost my hobbies, I've lost creativity, I've lost fun, and I just feel like Flat Stanley. Maybe you felt it before. And then I met Aparna Sud. She is fully three-dimensional, and I wondered how. In this pause now, we're going to learn how to stay fully alive, even with the pressures to pick a lane and to flatten yourself to better fit in the world around you. Parna, welcome to Soul Toll.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and bringing your full three-dimensional human self.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So when we first met, you said you were a consultant. I said, okay. And then you just kept going on and on and on and on with all of the other things that you are. You said you're an artist, you're a dancer, you're a neuroscientist, you're a yoga teacher. You said, oh, and also I've done some trauma-informed work in women's correctional facilities. And I literally couldn't keep track of the things you just kept adding on and on and on. And these things didn't always seem like they connected to one another or like was a natural progression. It was more like jazz in the way that you described everything that you do and everything that you are. And so, my first question to you on the show today is how are you all of these things at once?
That's a good question. I think a lot of these labels, I think in life we put labels on ourselves because it's easier to navigate the world. And so we kind of limit ourselves into and constrain ourselves into being and playing in boxes. And I think a lot about permission. Our society maybe doesn't allow for permission to play in 3D worlds. And a lot of us are multi-hyphenate people. I mean, there's so many layers to who we are, and not always do we show all of ourselves or allow us to kind of assume different identities. And so I would say that even for myself, some of these identities haven't felt so natural. Like artist has taken me, 7 years to really put on that identity and that label, just because I didn't feel like I had permission to play in that space. But I think how I've gotten to where I am now is just following my curiosities. Like you mentioned, like what makes you feel alive, what kind of energizes your soul and spirit, and to lean into that and see what happens when you open that door.
It's so interesting you start with labels because you're right. Like people could be multi-hyphenate. If they added labels onto things, maybe they might have not have labeled before. You said just before we walked in here, oh, I'm not a drummer. I said, well, you were like, well, I practiced and I took lessons for 7 years, but I'm not a drummer. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. In my mind, you play the drums and you're a drummer. That's another thing to add on here. And so maybe that is part of it is that people just fall into a lane and then don't give themselves permission to add these other labels. And so maybe don't express themselves fully in it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I haven't thought about it that way. So by mid-career, and I'd love to hear like, what you do in your career, if you could explain that for
Yeah.
people. But by mid-career, a lot of people have flattened into one identity, and some of that is very practical. We just don't have enough time in the day for all of the hobbies and everything that
Right.
we would want to do. But you haven't. And so what did you do or not do to like prevent that from happening and keep nourishing all of those different parts of you.
I guess I'll tackle the first part. So for work, I work in AI strategy, and I apply more of a human-centered design lens and I have a neuroscience background, so I bring that into my work as well. But a lot of my work now is helping organizations either help, determine their AI vision, strategy, or go in because my team is, or I sit on a team of data engineers and scientists. So we'll go in, help organizations identify the right use cases, and then implement AI solutions that are custom built for them. I would say that I've had a very circular or nonlinear path to my career. So I started off in corporate innovation for about 5 years. Then I saw these signals of design feeding into that space, took that, pivoted my career to more of design world. So design thinking, human-centered design. Have been working in consulting for 10 years and then really saw the AI shift. And I think it was a lot of convincing myself that I had permission to play in that space because I have kind of worked with AI, in 2009, more on the neural network side to understand a lot of the AI that we worked with was to understand how our brains are processing because EEGs and MRIs could only tell you so much then. Um, and so then I shifted to AI. So I think for me, I live a lot of my life of I think there's probably two ways. You could, if you want to get from A to B, you can. I think what I usually do is say, where are the doors opening? Where is their flow? And is there something within that experience that I need to follow, either for my soul, because I need that experience, or because the shift is like where I need to head. So it's more of an intuitive way to live life that is a little bit more emergent. Um,
How do you know if a door's open?
I think that's a good question. I think for me, I sit with it. Um, so I think if a door is opening, things will be easier.
Let it be easy.
Let it be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If there's a block, usually I take that as a signal there's a block for a reason. And I know some people see that differently. They say, this is a hurdle that you can overcome, you need to overcome. But usually the way that I look at it is if there's a stop or a block, it's a
Yeah.
redirection of your
This is
path.
something I have to remind myself about all the time because I love a good challenge. And
Yeah.
so, I innately am like, all right, I'm going to break through it. And then it's maybe like the third hurdle. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, wait. Why is this the way that I think we have to go?
Yeah.
And maybe we can go and let it be easy in a
Yeah.
different way.
Yeah.
You mentioned human-centered design in
Yes.
the context of AI, and
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, tech is tech and humans are humans, and like aren't quite appreciating this moment that technology, and especially with the acceleration of AI, is prompting this really big reflection on who are we as the humans
Yeah.
building it, who are we as the humans telling it what to do, who are we as the humans, like all of those questions. And I'm curious how that comes up in your work, the human component of what you do. And and part of this, just for like background on my thinking, is
Hmm.
you're this three-dimensional person. So of course you would have to know a lot about the human experience to design for humans. So I'm just curious, like in your work,
Yeah.
human-centered design, what does it have to do with technology? Like, could you clear that up for the listener?
Yes, of course. I think in my work, it's really applying a people and a systems lens to whatever problem we're solving. So at the end of the day, it has to be tied to a business problem that we're helping to solve with technology as a solution. And AI is a type of technology that can solve a business problem. It doesn't always have to be AI as solving the problem. And then the way that I look at the kind of the problem space we're helping our clients is it's a lot about, frankly, it bleeds into future of work. So
Mm-hmm.
it's,
Which is the now of work
yeah,
almost. Or
yes,
I think I
yes,
would say, but
yes,
I don't know if that's right.
absolutely. Yeah,
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 okay.
no, absolutely. Because I actually went to this conference recently where it was all about reimagining or about foresight and futures work. And a lot of that was the future is actually happening now. It's emergent. So how are you looking at all of the trends? It's not forecasting the weak and the strong signals and
Yeah,
the
there's no
trends
like
out
5-year
there.
strategy
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. It's like it's now. Yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of the kind of the bottlenecks now are for people in adoption. Like people aren't robots. We
Hmm.
can't treat people as robots. And so I think there's one, it's how are people adopting this new technology? What is kind of like the ecosystem of learning and training that needs to go along with it, as well as when you're going in and reimagining a process, how are you shifting the work? How are people working in concert with AI? What's the role of AI? What's the role of the human? Where are their handoffs? Who has autonomy? Where is human judgment coming in? Criticality? And how are you dividing up these capabilities to do what AI does best? Use, the computational speed of processing, the large volume of processing, and then how do you kind of use the role of human capability and judgment in the best way? And then looking at that from like a systems lens.
Yeah. So there's a lot of humanness
Yeah.
that you bring to your work. What about the people around you? Do you see the teams around you evolving in a similar way? Because I think that a lot of people think about AI accelerating and think about going into tech and being very technical in tech.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if actually the teams are evolving to be more human because the technical part is getting easier, at least in, kind of day-to-day work.
Yeah, I do see that. I think there's always a hype cycle with technology, but the hype cycle is starting to go down, in my opinion, and there's more hybrid models being implemented. So you have people and humans working in concert versus just looking at AI as a way to replace the human at a task level.
Mm-hmm.
And so fundamentally, what the ideal should be that your people are working in higher order type of activities.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a shift of work where, there's evaluation and judgment. And so I am seeing that shift now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the labels that you've given your permission,
Yeah.
yourself permission to have at the beginning in artist, dancer, neuroscientist, yoga teacher, consultant in AI, all of these different pieces. And you mentioned opening doors, and that's how you kind of walked through them. How can people, or how have you seen other people kind of embrace a similar philosophy, I guess, in an intuitive way to add those labels? Like, do you work with a lot of people in that way, or do you feel like you have a unique approach?
I don't think I have a unique approach. I do think it depends what environment and spaces I'm occupying, but I do think that the science is now catching up to, what we call embodied intelligence. So
Will you
there's
define that?
yes, I don't have the specific
Okay,
definition,
well,
but
not like the
basically, yeah.
Webster dictionary, just how you.
Basically, like we have for a long time just limited intelligence to our brains. And AI is like a small part of that is like a scaffolding of our minds. But there's actually a lot of intelligence that come from our heart. It comes in our hearts. So there's research out there on heart coherence. There's kind of bi-directional relationship between the mind and the heart. And then you have like the ENS, the enteric system, like the gut axis, the gut brain
Hmm.
axis. And so now we know that there's like a second brain in your gut. And so there's also a relationship between your gut and your brain. And so
Hmm.
we are actually,
Mind body, like
yeah,
said in like more abstract
exactly.
ways, but are actually scientific. Yeah.
Exactly. So like that intuition has scientific credibility behind it now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And how do these different parts of yourself kind of fuel one another, or do you see them as separate lanes or this kind of integrated piece that, how do you know when to fuel one or another?
Hmm. I would love for it to be fully integrated. I'm still working on that. But I think I see through lines through different sides of myself. So my art practice, I am an abstract artist. Explore a lot of concepts around our human condition, human experience, shared aspects of our humanity. Why are we here right now? Like, what's the greater purpose of life? That kind of
So you
feeds.
solve the greater purpose of
No,
life through your art.
no, I
You
just
express
ask
it.
questions,
Okay.
and then the abstract is almost like a container where I have permission to ask those questions
Okay.
in a visual way.
Okay.
And then hopefully that reflects out to the audience that I recently did a 7 series piece on time, space, and humanity. So some of the concepts, like for instance, are emergence. So the idea that things from our past kind of reemerge into the present, and but they look different because either that whatever is surfacing is different or you're different when you're approaching it. So then the abstract framing allows me to explore that a little bit deeper. But I forgot what the original question
No, that's
was.
okay. I was just wondering how you work with these different parts of yourself.
Yes.
And so
Okay.
how you fuel them. I guess I asked a multiple questions at once. How you fuel them, how you know when they need to be fueled.
Yeah.
And you started responding saying, I wish that they were more integrated maybe than they are,
Hmm.
which actually leads me into a follow-on question of like, how do you know whether it feels scattered and maybe depleting versus integrating and fueling? Like, how do you know which one to go to?
Yes. I think a lot about energy. So, like, where is my energy drained? What do I need? Like, what are those things that fuel me, like you mentioned? I think there's a sense of alignment when you find that integration. It's like mind, body, heart, spirit, soul, however you want to look at it. But there's similar to flow, there's a sense of everything being in alignment when you almost lose track of time when you're
Mm-hmm.
working on things. Like I think maybe everybody has experienced something that you're
I don't know if everyone
fully,
has.
yeah,
I saw
yeah,
a comment on LinkedIn that stuck with me. I saw it almost a year ago, commenting on flow. And the question was, how do you know when you're in a state of flow? And I was
mm,
kind of floored by this question because I was like, how do you not know when you're in well, you don't know
yeah,
necessarily when you're in it, but you know then when it breaks and you're like, oh,
right,
that was wonderful. I just was in it and time, no time passed, but actually it's been 4 hours.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
so I don't know that maybe people have experienced it, but I don't know that labels. I don't know if someone would know to
right,
label it that way.
yeah. And I think it's hard to find that as a forever state because, like you said, we have practical lives that we have to live, and on this earth, it's just, time kind of gets the best of you. But those those activities that I think it's also about attention. I'm curious what you think about this because I think you can bring probably an aspect of flow into a mundane task too,
Hmm.
as like a repetitive task, but you're almost slipping into like a different way of being or presence when you're doing it.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree with you that it becomes where are you focusing your attention because, or what mindset am I bringing to this? Because it could be, I don't want to do this mundane thing, or it could be, I'm going to love this repetition, and actually this is going to feel like a meditative
Yeah.
state, and just a place to kind of tune out but tune in at the
Yeah.
same time because I don't have to think about this a lot. And so it'd be I'm just going to walk and have it be this repetitive motion, or I'm just going to, do whatever this repetitive manual task is
Right.
that I
Yeah.
have to do right now. Probably why people love gardening or something like
Yeah.
that. I'm not a big
Yeah.
gardener myself, but I would imagine.
Yeah. I like what you said also about tuning in and tuning out because you're in a shifted state of mind where you're getting that rest, but you're actually focused as well.
Hmm.
So there's like it's interesting to think about too.
Yeah, and there's space in that. And you said at the beginning, like, so you're a yoga teacher as well. So I guess let's go into the different pieces of who you are.
Okay.
So you're a yoga teacher, and you said that you did trauma-informed work in women's correctional facilities, which my first question was, how did you get involved in that? So I guess, how did you become a yoga teacher? What space are you creating for people? And then how did you walk through that door
Mm,
to the women's correctional facilities?
sure. So I did my yoga teacher training 10 years ago. I think I grew up around adjacent to yoga like very early. So it was always within me, but then at some point I felt a calling or compelled to do my training. And I taught at different studios, and then I was living in Asheville for 4 years, and that's where
North Carolina.
yes, in North Carolina. So very creative community, very
Mm-hmm.
small, very easy to kind of get access to different types of populations. And I just, similar to what we talked about flow, I felt I wanted to work with a different types of populations, and I was curious about what does prison, what is the experience of prison? Like, what is the system look like? What are all the things that I don't know? So again, following my curiosity. And there was a program in Asheville that had is called Light a Path. So you
Okay.
go in, you teach at correctional facilities or prisons. Both of those look wildly different in terms of environment and people who are there for different reasons. You don't ask questions, but you're there to offer your presence, your energy, be a guide, facilitator, um, and so that's how I got into it. Now here, moving back to Boston, I'm teaching at studios again, but I think yoga is such an incredible example of it's when you're teaching is really not about you. You're more of a guide, but you're seeing or you're witnessing a transformation in an individual from the beginning of class to the end. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just it's so incredibly fulfilling
To
in
create that space for them to show up.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the other pieces? So that's one piece that fuels you in yoga is creating that. I've heard the word container before for people to kind of step into and show up, and then they can either take it with them or leave it there as they leave. What about as a dancer? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so dance is
You
something that has
smile whenever
yeah,
you say
I do.
dance.
Funny because I'm, like I'm 36 now. Usually people don't dance anymore.
I danced this
Yeah, yeah,
weekend.
it's great.
I did.
But dance is something that has bringing me so much joy. I've been dancing a lot of my life, but I think in the past couple years I've really come into the creative medium in a different way. And it's just all I can say is it's just bringing me so much joy. And it's I think right now where I'm at with my dance practice is how can you pull from within you? Because with any art form, there's almost a transference of the soul at a soul level. You're communicating something that cannot be placed into words, and you're offering something to somebody else on an energetic level. There's an exchange there that is not transactional. Um, and we don't have that in our economy. Well, our economy is very based on monetary
Hmm.
currency, but there's a lot of other types of exchange that we have as humans, whether it's social or energetic, that can't be boxed or put into a label. So I think art is just so incredibly expansive in that way. And so with dance, I think I'm finding a place from within that I'm pulling and putting forth, and it's not about executing movement, it's about communicating something artistically through expression of the body. So
That's beautiful. I want to keep going on this because I feel like a lot just got pulled out there. So dance is joy. And I
yes.
see it in you every time you say dance. So that's clearly what's fueling you about dance and the exchange and the expression. Yoga is this space for others where you can show up with your presence. Art is this expansive state where you're figuring out the meaning of life, which is wonderful. I didn't mean to laugh in that. I just think it's like so. What an amazing thing to come to, a blank canvas with. What are the other pieces? So neuroscientists, like, what does that feel like? What does that give you or allow you to give to others? Or is that more in the
I
transactional
feel very
domain?
seen right now.
Oh,
Thank you.
in a good way?
Yes.
Okay.
I think neuroscience is more of the scientific aspects of things, and it's about I think as individuals we have so much neurodivergence in the world, and so I think that my interest and curiosity about the brain comes back to my interest and curiosity in human beings and people and what makes them think, how they tick, you know, how they think. I think that understanding of what happens between our actions and our thoughts, to me, all of that is like interconnected with art and spirituality. And yeah, so to me, it all connects because it's like the beauty of human life, creation, like us as a species.
Hmm. The neuroscience piece, do you remember what got you interested in that in the first place?
Truthfully, I think I was just I didn't love, like, I was interested in human biology
Mm-hmm.
just as a system. I think
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we have bodies that are so regenerative and self-healing was really interesting. I came from a family of doctors, but I didn't want to go to med school. And
Mm-hmm.
so the human brain and the psychology part of it was always very fascinating to me. And then MIT had a program in cognitive and neuroscience, so I pursued that. But and that
Just
kind of
casually, just casually, MIT had this program. So I went and did that.
that actually
Like it's
like
hard?
saved my tea was incredibly hard for me. I don't think I could go back to school.
I know. I was sorry. I was doing a Legally Blonde throwback.
But it all connected because it's so tied to design, you
Yeah.
know? So it actually served me later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Human design, what's going on between the ears, as
Yeah.
my father would say. He'd be so pleased to hear this right now. All right. A lot of my listeners are parents of teenagers and young adults.
Mhm.
And I think this conversation is particularly important for them to walk through life in not to become a flat Stanley and walk through life three-dimensionally, like both for their own personal fulfillment as the world accelerates and gets more complex faster and faster and faster, and people are becoming unanchored and ungrounded. And I think those pieces are important to stay anchored and grounded as like critically in this time. But frankly, also for job security, which is, part of the reason I was asking you those questions at the beginning, and that this complexity is requiring us to come with different parts of ourselves fully evolved and with different parts of ourselves, like you said, that bring joy or space for others, for presence. Like, how can you design around humans if you can't be present with one and learn from them? Things that are expansive, because we're going to need that for innovation, for creating, our world around us, in business as we go. And so my with that context, my question to you is, for those parents or for that young adult, who is still in a traditional model of being told, like, pick a lane, pick a major, pick a job, like, what is your advice for them, both in what you've experienced and what you're seeing right now?
It's a very good question. And I'm not a parent, so I can't, but I am an aunt. I'm a very involved aunt of two nephews who are 8 and 10. And I do think about this question, like, what does their future look like? I would say one is, I think sometimes we discredit kids because, we've lived more life than them, but actually they have a lot of questions, curiosities, thoughts, ideas that are completely valid. And to sit with them. And as an aunt, I have that privilege because I don't have to think about their, you know, keeping them alive
Yeah,
as much
yeah,
as
I get it.
parents
On
do.
status is a
Yeah.
great status.
But sitting with them, making them feel heard and seen, and then exploring their curiosities. What are they curious about? How can you reinforce that? How can you drive their creativity? Because I do think, as you said, with AI, the next generation skills are complex problem solving, creativity, all of these tasks, things that you can't right now, AI can't do as well as humans.
I like the right now.
It's, but humans are so incredible with their capabilities and their intelligence. I mean, AI, when you put AI into a local context, it's going to even the way it creates, it's going to recombine and look at patterns. but within the local context. We as
Mm-hmm.
humans see things from a holistic standpoint. So we can combine things from here to there and recombine in different ways. We also use our whole body intelligence to create. And so I think there's such a push of AI can do everything that we can, but actually that's not true. So where are the spaces where I would encourage, where can you anchor on in a particular domain or expertise and then pull, curiosity, information, knowledge from other domains and connect the dots, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really where the uniqueness will be and your distinctiveness. And so the more that you can pull from different worlds and explore those curiosities, I think no other person can match you in that than the
Mm-hmm.
way that you're combining different worlds in unique ways.
And we just have a couple minutes left, but I do want to talk about embodied intelligence for just another moment because this is the first time I'm hearing that phrase. And it makes a lot of sense to me as to, and if you could give your take on what is embodied. And it took me a while really to understand, and maybe for the listener, thinking about like if you go to a conference, if a listener goes to a conference, but if you go to a thing, okay, like if you go and you learn something with people, whatever context that is for you, and then you just immediately go to the next thing, you have no integration time. You have no time to kind of like absorb those learnings, integrate them, and then you'll actually take them and use them in your life. Whereas if you just have your takeaways, okay, great, but you haven't embodied them, you haven't integrated them. And so you don't necessarily bring them with you, back with you into your life. And that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. And so I'm
Mhm.
curious if that's the right way because that's a practice. It took me a while to understand was to build in time after the thing that I was going to learn something about to have an integration time. Otherwise, what was the point in the first place? Because I'm not taking it back with me. Like, is that what embodied intelligence is to go learn something from dance, from yoga, from like whatever world it is that you're exploring or whatever part of yourself you're opening up to have that moment to embody it and now you have that intelligence like to work and live with, or is it totally different and I got it wrong?
I think that's a really excellent way to look at it. And I haven't looked at it that way, but the integration piece is so important because you're not learning until you sit back and you take things from a different perspective and you reflect them. And I think that actually lends itself to the difference between experience and wisdom and AI and the knowledge and the information we have at our fingertips. Because yes, we have all this information with AI systems, but we have a younger generation coming up that isn't given the time and space to integrate that information and
Mm,
knowledge
right.
into experience. And so then you have potentially a generational gap where you have people with a lot of wisdom and lived experience. And so, yeah, maybe another way to look at it is lived experience, and you get that through integration and through learning. How I was initially looking at it is from, like a whole body, like what is got your heart and your brain doing.
Okay.
But I do think that now that you're saying that, I think a better way for me to think of it even is what is your lived experience
Mm-hmm.
and your
And there's more than just what's
integration.
in your mind as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. And your
Yeah.
integration is then the different intelligence of your body. I got you.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
right,
we
but
figured it
we
out.
figured it out. There's definitely something there. All right, as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you from this conversation today, and we anchored on the word human as we came into this. What's one thing to start doing that you would recommend for someone who wants to live a full three-dimensional, alive life? Or because we're already all so busy, what's one thing to stop doing?
Hmm, that's good. I think one thing to start doing is maybe build in a couple minutes every week, even to write down where are the doors opening, what are your curiosities, and just sit with that.
The let it be easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And stop doing is um, what can you take out of your life where it's busy? how can you take out the busyness?
The noise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think it is hard for us to sit with ourselves sometimes, and so we pile in a lot of busy things.
The sitting with ourselves could be like another thing added to the calendar. It's
Yeah,
like another
that's true.
busy thing. Must sit with self. But I no, but I hear what you're saying. The things that don't contribute to where we're trying to go.
Yeah, and the rest and digest cycles, because there's a lot of research on that of, creativity and just how we work as humans. Like we need those cycles. Everything is recursive. Actually, growth is recursive. It's not upward.
Hmm. I like how you just threw in a whole new topic at the end. Thank
Sorry.
you. Well, we'll end there. We'll have to pick that one up next time we're online. Well, thank you so much. This was such an enjoyable conversation. I really enjoyed all the wisdom you had to share, but also just seeing you light up on certain topics, on dance, on art, and the way that you approach them and have these different philosophies almost as to like what you're bringing to them and what they give you and what you're giving to others through that. It was really wonderful to explore that with you. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been, as I mentioned, I'm usually in your seat asking the questions, so it was very, very refreshing to feel so seen and such thoughtful questions. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad we were able to create that space, that container for presence for you today on Soltal. Thank you.
Thank you.